Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, angels. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Today, among other things, we're going to talk about plagues. We're going to talk about plagues as a wake-up call, plagues as a way of being made aware that something isn't working. And angels, what we're singing about right now, often play a similar role in the Torah. They come as a way of introducing the character to something that needs to change. You know, like think of the donkey that's carrying the prophet Bilam, who's tasked with cursing the Jews, and this angel thwarts the donkey's way, and the donkey cries out, and the prophet's like, "What are you doing, you stupid donkey?" But it's actually an angel trying to get his attention, saying, "You are really making a bad choice." And it takes a lot of angel attention and a lot of donkey thwarting to get this guy to wake up. You guys, I hit a parked car today. I can't believe I'm telling you this. It wasn't bad. It was like a little bumper thing, but I left a mark. I also left a note. I'm in touch with the person whose car I hit. And for me, that was an incredible angel. A wake-up call. Like, what was I doing? I know how to parallel park. I totally know how to parallel park, you guys. I'm very good at parallel parking. I just wasn't paying attention. You know, could have been much worse than a parked car. That was a little angel. Something in my way to wake me up, so I don't make that same mistake again. So as we're welcoming angels in tonight, Shalom Aleichem, welcome angels, come on in. We're saying, send us signs, God, send us signs that we need to pay better attention, we need to take better care. There's something that needs to change, and I'm ready to change. I'm ready to do what I should be doing. Thank you, angels. We even bless you, angels, even when you're annoying sometimes, and even when you cost us money, and even when you make us look embarrassed, which I definitely feel, but also grateful. So I bless you, angel. Baruchuni l'shalom. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom. Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's something in this Parshat Vayera, about paying attention. I mean, the entire Torah could be seen as a series of metaphors and stories about how to pay attention and how not to pay attention, and why we pay attention, and when we pay attention, and what gets in the way of our paying attention. And so this week, we see God having gotten Moses' attention last week at the burning bush, and having succeeded in convincing Moses to be his spokesperson, well, God's spokesperson on earth. Go to the people, let them know I am on their side. I want to free them. And so Moses, goes to the people and kind of makes a big noise like God's here and God wants to redeem the Israelites. And that actually makes it worse for the Israelites. Pharaoh and the taskmasters clamp down even harder, so that they have to work harder. Oh, you think you're going to leave? Let us show you who's really in charge. And so when Moses tries to speak to the people, when God says to Moses, let them know I am here, I will redeem them, I will lead them to freedom with my mighty hand and outstretched arm. Moses comes back and says, they can't hear me. Mi avodah kasha umikotzer ruach. Because of shortness of breath, kotzer ruach, tightness of breath, and avodah kasha, hard labor. Now, avodah means work or service. Maybe you're familiar with the Jewish Service Corps, which has young Jewish recent college grads like serving, working all over the country, helping people. In social sector jobs, which are really hard work, which is real labor, meaningful labor. And the ticket is this. Here's what makes it work that is holy and sanctified, and not what the Israelites experienced in Egypt. Work is not inherently a bad thing. In fact, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. But if you must do it, if it takes over your life, if you don't have any respite, if it's the only thing you do, if you get burnt out working, if it becomes unrelenting and oppressive and constant, then it's slavery. Then it's not work anymore. Then it's slavery. And the Israelites couldn't even hear that help was on the way because they were too broken and defeated and burnt out by oppressive work. They did not have a moment's peace. They couldn't even take a breath. And so they couldn't hear or see a way out. This past week, I studied Shabbat as a concept with our Exploring Judaism students. And it's kind of an amazing thing, actually, that, right up there with thou shalt not murder and thou shalt not steal is honoring the Sabbath. Remembering the Sabbath, guarding the Sabbath, that there is something about this ratio of 6 days you will work, but one day is Shabbat. It is a break. It is a day off so that you will remember, critically, you are no longer a slave in Egypt. You should work. It's good for you, but no more than 6 days a week. And one day out of 7, you are obligated to rest. Right? It says, Sheshet yamim ta'avod v'asita kol melachtecha. Do all your work. Seriously, work hard during those 6 days. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat la'Adonai Elohecha. And on the 7th day, it will be a Sabbath for God. Because work you usually do for a boss, for money, for reward, right? For the material benefits or the status that we get for working. But Shabbat, you do for God, for lack of better word, for a higher purpose, to remember that you're a human being. You are not defined by your work or worth or status or power, right? That you're holy, that you are sacred, that you matter, regardless of what you do 6 days a week. Shabbat comes to remind us. And I actually think it's because the gravitational pull of work is so powerful that it takes a character like God. It takes an equal opposite force, a more powerful force to say, you need to rest. You must. I instruct you. I obligate you. It's in the 10 Commandments. And it's still really hard to do it. It's really hard to rest. So we give ourselves all of these all of these crutches to lean on, these tools to help us do it better, more easily, so that there can be, an equal gravitational pull in the direction of Shabbat. These candles right behind me. Even just lighting candles and having a chance to look at them, to take in their light, to pause long enough to light candles, begins to create a little bit of spaciousness inside of ourselves for Shabbat. It takes strength, actually, to put the work week down, to stop. So I want to invite you to do this with me. If it helps to actually kind of look over my shoulder at these candles, great. I'm going to close my eyes. I invite you to close yours too. And sit up a little bit straighter. Shabbat as a concept, as an institution, as an inheritance, is a counter-testimony to Egypt. For all time. Oti le'olam. This will never not be relevant. There is always a reason to come back to a place of rest, to a place of breath. So go ahead and breathe. Feel your belly expand and release. Release your shoulders. Let your neck elongate. Shabbat comes to interrupt the pattern of attention that we're used to paying, however we pay, to our computer, to our families, to our friends, and ask us to wake up and pay closer attention to the people who matter, to great books, to big ideas, not to get caught up in the minutia and the chaos and the urgency of the 24-hour news cycle, but to come back to equilibrium inside, which you can do just by breathing. And remember that it's always here for you. And as I sing this next song, which is about the strength that it takes to release, to let go, feel free to join me, or feel free to keep breathing. ענה בכוח גדולת ימינך, תתיר צרורה, תתיר צרורה, קבל רינת עמך סגרנו, תרנו נורא. ענה בכוח גדולת ימינך, תתיר צרורה, תתיר צרורה, קבל רינת עמך סגרנו, תרנו נורא. Okay, I can't see what you're putting in the chat, if anything. I hope if you haven't already, you'll introduce yourself and tell us where you're tuning in from. But also maybe what's something that it's going to take a little bit of strength for you, but that you will nonetheless make an effort to put down and not worry about. I mean, I was going to say for 24 hours, but like even for just tonight, you know, just like resist the urge to, you know, whatever. Tell us, you know, maybe if you put it in the chat, it'll actually hold you a little bit accountable to not do that. So if somebody knows you, they can check in with you next week, say, how'd that go? I can tell you all right now, since I can't put can't put anything in the chat. I am going to resist the urge to do any work on tomorrow's service. We're good. I'm gonna read tonight. I'm gonna curl up with Henry and have a glass of wine and talk. And that's gonna be Shabbat. Maybe we'll even sing and go to bed early. All that sounds so nice. And I'm not gonna do anything that requires a computer or a phone. So, okay. Now I've said it. Now I have to do it. What about you? Anna bekoach gedulat yemincha. Where am I? Kavel rinat amcha sagveinu tahareinu nora hananai All right. Should we learn a little Torah? Okay. Before we learn any Torah. I'm very happy to have reached the end of the week here. As you can tell from my personal oversharing, like it's been a long day. It's been a week. But I feel like, as usual, Shabbat comes as a really nice reset. So you're watching that happen for me in real time. Welcome to Mishkan online once a month. Friday night once a month, we do this online service. All of our other services are live streamed for those of you who might be joining us for the first time. We're on tomorrow morning. We will be live streaming, but we're also meeting in person at JCYS on Lawrence here in Chicago, 9:30 a.m. Central. And we always stagger Shabbat morning, and then next week it'll be Friday night in person, and the following week, Saturday morning in person. And for those in-person services, we use Sidurim, prayer books, and we have a whole bunch of new ones, and I wanted to offer you the opportunity to dedicate them. We did this once a couple years ago, and you sent in, like, I don't know, 50, 75 of you sent in who you wanted to honor and like something they said or stood for. And so when you open up a Siddur, there's, you know, who you are, that you dedicated a Siddur in honor of your grandfather, who used to always say, don't be greedy, hogs get slaughtered. Or whatever. And there's some funny and cute and delightful and heartwarming and meaningful Siddur dedications. And if you're interested in doing that, make a donation online and just say in the memo that it's for a Siddur dedication. It's $36 for one, $72 for two, etc. Wanted to let you know about that. We have a whole bunch of stuff happening in the community. You can just, you can go to our website and read more about it. But I'm hosting a brunch in a couple weeks on Sunday called It's the End of the World as We Know It. Should I have children? So if that's a question that keeps you up at night, I invite you to come eat bagels with us and talk about it. Rabbi Goldie Guy from the Hadar Institute is doing a text study called Power and Protest, sort of authority in the rabbinic tradition, which should be super interesting. And it's a 4-week course starting in February. We have a new builder orientation for anybody who is a new builder in the community. And if you have just been watching our services and enjoying them and feeling part of the community, but actually we have no idea who you are, I want to invite you to become a builder. And if there's anybody who's watching tonight that's feeling like that might be you, identify yourself and let the rest of the people here shower you with love, so that you will know you will be loved and accepted here, and come and be part of the new builder orientation, which is on February 7th. And then finally, next week, our local justice action team is doing a meetup to talk about pizza. Well, not talk about, eat pizza, and talk about Parsha and Power with Rabbi Stephen. To talk about what issues JCUA, the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, is talking about, thinking about, and getting us activated around. For those of you on a fertility journey, there's actually a Shabbat dinner for people who are on that journey and want to be in dialogue with other folks in the community in that. That's a Maggie's Place thing. Our Maggie's Place is kind of our wellness center and programs, and we also have a support group for loved ones of trans people. And then finally, I feel like I'm saying a lot of stuff, but I want you to know all of the stuff that's going on, because it's not just Shabbat, it's all week. And this Sunday, Tim is leading a virtual Torah study. We have a chronic illness and disability hot cocoa and Havdalah online. And then different things for 20s, 30s, an election salon, a Shabbat potluck, and then finally a Shabbat potluck in the northern suburbs, specifically studying Musar, which is super interesting, and I wish I could go. And then, of course, we have Minyan every single day of the week, Monday through Friday. So it would be great to see you for any of that. All right, now, let's learn some Torah. The anniversary of my bat mitzvah is next weekend. My bat mitzvah was in 1994. So I guess that makes this the 39th anniversary of my bat mitzvah next week. And it was the coldest day of the year that day in 1994. And in the sanctuary of KAM Isaiah Israel in Chicago, the heat was broken that day. So everybody was like inside in their coats, but my sermon was on fire. And I talked that day about the vexing problem in the Parsha that Pharaoh appears to want the Israelites to go. Like, he is experiencing pain and suffering, and so are his people. But God has decided to harden Pharaoh's heart so that Pharaoh can hold his ground and will not let the Israelites go. And in doing so, he is punished by God. And the plagues, the extraordinary chastisements, as they are referred to in the Torah, are loosed forth upon the Egyptians, so that they suffer greatly. And we see the first of these 7 plagues happen in this week's Torah portion. This hardening of the heart and the plagues are the subject of this week's Torah portion. And so this divine hardening of the heart was not just a problem for 13-year-old Lizzie, but it has vexed Jewish commentators for millennia, because one of the fundamental axioms, that Judaism rests on is that human beings have free will, that we can direct our own choices. We are not, puppets in some divine puppet scheme, with God as the puppet master and all of us sort of playing a role. No, it's only meaningful that Pharaoh is Pharaoh and is evil and represents evil and is deserving of punishment from God for his cruel oppression of the Israelites if Pharaoh is actively making the choice to do that, right? If God's making the choice for him and then punishing him and all the Egyptians in a kind of divine puppet show where God controls all the characters and then tortures them. This is not a God we want to have anything to do with, right? That's a sadist. That's not the force for salvation in the universe. And our tradition sees God as the force for salvation in the universe, as a loving, liberatory force. So this is not just a literary problem, sort of an intellectual problem. This is a philosophical, moral, theological, personal problem. It's sort of like if God is hardening Pharaoh's heart and Pharaoh doesn't have free will, then what's the point for any of us to think about changing our lives? So, as you may imagine, much ink has been spilled over this question. There are many different ways that the sages over the centuries have addressed this problem. But I want to offer one way of looking at the Exodus story today that I think can help. And that's dream interpretation. My basic thesis is that if God isn't a different character from Pharaoh, but actually both represent parts of my psyche, right, my inner world, then there's no conflict in God hardening Pharaoh's heart. This is just the Torah describing what happens when we are confronted with the need to adapt and change our lives, and we aren't ready for it, and we resist. So follow me on this little journey and tell me what you think. I truly wish we could be doing this as a class. I think it would be a lot more fun. I look forward to reading the comments and getting back to you. So in Jungian dream theory, every character in your dream reflects you in a different way, because obviously you're the one having the dream. So, it's a different part of your psyche, your ego, your personality, your motivations. All of this comes out in the different characters in any dream you have. And you can say the same thing about the Torah. Every character in the Torah represents a part of you that if you are brave enough, you will look at and recognize and have compassion for, because we're all human. And you'll learn something very deep about yourself if you can be brave and look at even the hard characters to look at as representing a part of yourself. And if we all do this, we might just be able to transform ourselves collectively and to release the constricting, oppressive tendencies that we hold on to. So, who are some of these characters? I want to tease them out a little bit. I'm going to use the language of I, because this is, of course, me too. So we are the Israelites. We are victims. We are tired. We are beaten down. We are defeated. We are weak. We can barely speak up on our own behalf. We can barely breathe. It's been hundreds of years of having no control over our own lives, doing backbreaking work every day, watching our children be killed or be enslaved. We are broken. And we're in Mitzrayim, Egypt. And Mitzrayim means not so much a geographic place, but a state of mind. Mitzrayim is a narrow place, literally, Metzar, the narrow place. And in a Mitzrayim state of mind, nothing can ever change. Everything will always be this way. There's no point in trying to change things. Just keep your head down. Don't make waves. Be at peace with your situation. Don't try to change things. It'll just make it worse. That's the Israelite in us. At least in Egypt. Okay, then you've got Pharaoh. Very different energy. Pharaoh is used to being in charge. Powerful. Entitled. In control. As Pharaoh, I can't imagine the world being different from the way it is, but in my case, it's actually because this world and its systems really work for me. I'm doing fine. The truth is, I'm part of the power structure. I didn't create it, mind you. I inherited it. And it's not my fault. But I'd like to keep things basically the way that they are, because I'm doing okay. And then you've got Moses. Where's my finger puppet? This week, one of you, Delia in Sweden, sent me a Moses finger puppet. I'm so sorry I left it on the fridge. Anyway, you can imagine me doing this with a finger puppet instead of just with my face, but nonetheless. Okay, I'm Moses. We have a Moses inside of us who wants to speak truth to power, who wants to get out there, and is also terrified. And I've tried it, actually. I've done it. And I made things worse multiple times. I've made horrible mistakes trying to act on behalf of justice, trying to speak on behalf of the oppressed. I've made things worse. And I don't want to fail. And I don't want to make things worse for people. And I feel like I'm not even the best spokesperson anyway. I mean, like, I stutter. I'm not eloquent. I get angry easily. I'm impatient. I wish somebody else could do this job. Like Moses, hesitant, self-doubt, but also full of righteousness and righteous indignation and fire. Okay, and then you've got the character of God. I am the force in the story moving everybody toward liberation. I am obsessed with fairness, and I am angry at seeing my people, the Israelites, being oppressed. And I'm also angry at seeing my people, the Egyptians, acting as oppressors. This is not who I created human beings to be. And it doesn't have to be this way. I will relentlessly push and push and push until my people, all of them, understand that I created all people to be free and to be healthy in mind and body, to live with respect for one another, with dignity and fairness for everyone, regardless of status or wealth or nationality or race or sex or sexual orientation. Everyone is made in my image. It makes me angry and sad to see the world in this state. And if that means I have to send plague after plague after plague to show you that I will not stand idly by while you oppress your brother, then get ready for some plagues, says God. Okay, I'm breaking character now. I'm Rabbi Lizzie again. So the plagues aren't exactly characters, like parts of our consciousness, so much as they are consequences for our consciousness. They're karma, right? We witness in this week's parsha the first of the 10 plagues, the first 7 of the 10 plagues. The Nile being filled with blood, making it not able to drink. Frogs like descending on the land, exiting the water and taking over the earth. Lice, cattle disease, swarms of insects, boils all over everybody's skin, and hail. All of these plagues represent natural forces being wildly out of balance and are the result of one part of our consciousness resisting the other, right? There's the voice inside of us saying things can and should be different, healthier, more stable, more supported, more sustainable. It's been a long time since we've felt this way, but we can get back there. That's the voice of God. That's the inner voice of the Israelites who actually are beginning to believe that maybe it's possible. And then there's another voice saying, resisting, not gonna happen. Even though the result is that your world becomes more and more damaged and unstable as the consequences mount, you persist in keeping things the way they are. Just maintain status quo. And the more pride that's wrapped up and time that's invested in digging our heels into the old way, the harder Pharaoh's heart becomes. So Rabbi Shefa Gold writes that as scary as the plagues are, when we witness the tragic situations of obvious and deadly imbalance, that actually can be the opening we need when our consciousness begins to awaken and turns toward the possibility that things could be different. And imagine that even Pharaoh, in that moment, turn toward the possibility that things could be different. For some people, that's a heart attack. For some people, that's a near fatal car accident caused by texting or drunk driving or a horrible fight with a loved one. Something that acted as a plague, an unwelcome imbalance of the way that things should be that causes damage. And that actually opens up a window to see that things could be different, that you could be different. But beware, because the second that window of transformation opens, immediately the forces inside of us that enjoy the way that things are tell us to dig in our heels and resist changing anything. Maybe because the way things are gives us a sense of predictability, right? Maybe we get material benefits, maybe because we're scared of what a change could bring, because at least we know the devil we know. By the way, I'm thinking of like the end of season 1 of White Lotus. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, but then you'll know what I'm talking about, where you sort of can't believe that a person makes a choice that is so obviously bad for them because of the material benefits they will get, even if they remain devastatingly unhappy. And so as that window opens, that is precisely when we actually can get more stuck where we are because we're so attached to the perks of the status quo. And so hence we have this language of God hardening Pharaoh's heart. It's not a force that's outside of us making it hard for us to change. It's the part of us that actually likes the way things are and benefits from it, as another part of us is opening up that window for change. And this can be so many things. I mean, the metaphor of Egypt and going forth from Egypt and Pharaoh and God and the Israelites applies to so many things. This could be staying in a relationship or a job that you know is not right, is suffocating some part of you, but also offers stability and material comforts. This could be addictive behavior that you know hurts you, but also soothes you in the moment or brings you community. Expand this out, because of course anything that's true about the individual is going to be true about society, right? Rabbi Nachman says that every human being is just an olam katan, a small world, and the world is just the macro version of every olam katan. Anything that's true about each one of us is going to be true about all of us collectively. Think about the colossal collective change that we need to make as a society if we're going to slow down climate change, which includes all the big oil companies and polluters and governments that need to make serious, dramatic changes. If we're going to save our democracy, if we're going to end systemic racism and inequality, people who benefit from the status quo, which actually is all of us, even if it's hurting us, which it is all of us, will need to relinquish some of the perks that we get from systems being as they are in order to bring about collective transformation that will set our world back in balance. And we're seeing the plagues all around us, trying to wake us up and get our attention to open that window of transformation for us. But the thing is, it's scary. It's not even that we're comfortable the way things are. And this is where I can have some compassion for all of us in this. It's scary because we don't know what will happen when we really let that God force work through us. We don't know what the promised land looks like. We're not even close. What we're just talking about is the first step on a path out of this situation and into the wilderness, which is where we figure out what's next. That's scary. That's legitimately scary. Not knowing how things will go in the end, not knowing even what the wilderness looks like or what our life will look like on the other side of this thing. I understand and appreciate our foot dragging, our keeping our head down, our saying to ourselves, I can go on like this just a little bit longer. We can go on like this just a little bit longer. I can take it. We'll adapt. Or the consequences of waiting longer can't be that bad, right? And so let's just not do anything differently. But anyone who's gotten sober or made it to the other side of a suicidal depression or won a campaign after decades of being told it was impossible or gotten out of an abusive relationship, even though it was the scariest thing in the world they ever did, has gotten to the other side of the Red Sea, whatever that was, and they will tell you that it's worth the trek. It's worth the uncertainty, and it's worth the wilderness. And what makes it possible is knowing a few things. One, God is on your side. I mean, God is on all of our insides, which means that B, you're not alone. You are not alone. Not only do you have God traveling with you, you got all of these characters to keep you company in there, but you're part of a universal story of struggle that every single person has been through and that we are all going through. We need each other to fortify each other, to walk with each other with love and with recognition. We have been through this. I have been through this. You have been through this, and we can support each other. It's the hardest thing to do. The pride, the shame of changing, of doing something differently, of admitting that the way things were was actually malfunctioning, was wrong, was bad. And everyone knows how good it feels to be embraced and recognized for having made the first step out of that bad place, out of that Mitzrayim. We can be community for each other when things get hard. That's part of what we're all doing here, I think. Part of what we're doing is, being in a spiritual community, singing songs, saying prayers, learning Torah, perpetuating tradition, having traditions. It's great. I love being part of a tradition, part of a people. Part of what we do for each other is we show up when the going gets rough. We have a claim on each other. We have marched together before, and we will do it again. Because this isn't a story of something that just happened once in the past in Egypt in the Torah. This is the story of something we go through on the daily and will every day for the rest of our lives. We need each other. So Rabbi Shefa Gold, who writes a lot of her commentary from this perspective, writes that the spiritual challenge of this week's Torah portion is that we should keep our heart open in the face of prolonged suffering and let the seeds of freedom grow in the darkness with an open heart. She writes that once you identify the ways in which your heart has hardened, in which you have resisted change, the challenge then is to bring beauty and tenderness and compassion to your heart, even to Pharaoh in there, to soften and penetrate the layers of defense that have been built up around it, and that is actually the first step. And we need love for that, and we need compassion for that, and we need patience for that, and we need song, and we need to be cared for with good food, and maybe wine, but maybe grape juice, and community, and a good story that lets us know we are not the first person to go through this, and we're not going to be the last, and we can take care of each other. And actually, all of that is the first step toward change. So I want to bless us tonight. I want to bless us tonight that we can be strong enough and wise enough and patient enough and resolute enough and committed enough to take that first step, and then the next step, and then the next, and then the next, every day for the rest of our lives. As Martin Luther King said, we may not get to the promised land, but we've got to keep walking in that direction, and we'll do it together. So I want to invite you to raise a glass in honor of the Holy Shabbos, in honor of the day that brings us together across this world. Oh, interesting. I see this Hashkivenu slide here, but I wasn't actually planning on doing a Wasn't planning on doing that particular prayer. But I can. How about this? Go back there. Go back to that Hashkivenu. Let's do it. Why not? Why not? I sort of feel like the sermon that I just gave is an invitation to healing. So go ahead and share the names of the folks that you're thinking of who need a prayer, who need healing, who are in their own Mitzrayim. Maybe it's a Mitzrayim of mind. Maybe it's a Mitzrayim of body. And if it's you that needs a prayer, you that needs healing, so put your own name in the chat or say me, and then let somebody say, I've got you, whatever your name is. I'm going to sing a one that you're maybe less familiar with. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us daily wrong from right. Amen. 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 Refuah shlema to everybody. Complete and speedy healing and transformation. All right, and now we raise a glass. Yom Hashishi, Vayechulu Hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam, Vayechal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, Vayishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa, Vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i. You can go a little further in the slides. V'kadesh oto. There you go. Next one. Kivo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim lasot. Savri, Chaim, Clink. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh. Listen to this part. Zecher letziat Mitzrayim. That we make Kiddush every week to remember that we left Egypt. Kivanu v'acharta v'yatanu kidashta im kol ha'amim v'shabbat kodecha v'ahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. All right. We're going to say Mourner's Kaddish. Remember anybody who passed away in this past week, or past month, or past year, and anybody whose yahrzeit it is. I know Peter Fiddler is remembering his dad's 18th yahrzeit. I know that my husband Henry and many music lovers around the world are remembering David Crosby this week. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and the Byrds, and also solo. Great music maker. Go ahead and share whoever else it is that you're thinking about tonight. I will stand. I will stand here. May all of their memories be blessings. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulal me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata tamiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael ve'el kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru. Amen. Yehi zichronam livracha. Oh yeah, tomorrow night, y'all. A friend of Mishkan and creator of a lot of the music that we sing at Mishkan, Rabbi Deborah Sachs-Mintz, is performing at Wilson Abbey. I think it's at 7. But if you want to do some more singing, come to Shul in the morning at Mishkan, and in the evening go to the concert. And feel free to drop me a line and ask me about it. I think the whole davening team is going. It'll be a fun night. All right, let's close out with Adon Olam. I feel like that sermon was a bummer. I'm like feeling bummed out by the fact that, we've all got this little Pharaoh inside of us that really wants us to not change and wants our world to not change. And so, now I feel like I need to, what do you do? What do you do to deal with that inner Pharaoh? This is the question. I mean, this is the question. Well, I guess we practice being free. We practice being free of Pharaoh. The last line in this song, Adon Olam, is Biyado afkid ruchi. In your soul I place my spirit, or in your hand, in his hand I place my spirit. When I go to sleep and when I wake, and even if my spirit leaves me, I will not be afraid. God is with me. God is for me. God is toward me, in me. I don't know which preposition you want to use, but I will not be afraid. I feel like that's it. That's it. It's like, okay, I see you, Pharaoh. I meet your gaze. I match you. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of you. Adon Olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא לעד נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעד נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה לתפארה. Next slide. והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להחמירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית אדון ללא העוז Ve'hamizra. Next slide. Ve'hu Eli v'chai goali v'tzor chevli ve'etzara ve'hu nisi umanos li v'nakosi v'yom ekra be'yado afkid ruchi ve'tishan ve'ayira ve'imruchi Geviati Adonai li velo ira. Pull the slides. Yalai, ay, ay, yalai, ay, 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 yalai, ay, ay, la, 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 ay, la, la, ay, ay, yalai, la, ay, yalai, la, la, yalai, la, 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 ay. Good Shabbos, everybody. Good night.